Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CMA webinar series. I'm Mike Wilkening, Communications Manager here at ARC. I'll be your host for today's webinar, How Coca-Cola Uses AI-Driven Insights for Smarter Shelf Strategies, hosted by Harmonya and Coca-Cola. Now, in this session, Coca-Cola and Harmonya are going to showcase how enriched product data is reshaping category management. You're going to get a view into how consumer-centric attributes like sweetener type, electrolyte source, and functional ingredients can enhance space planning and refine retailer conversations. Also, we're going to explore how AI-powered product tagging unlocks new insights, makes it easier to optimize shelf strategies, and how to drive smarter decisions. Now, this is an interactive session, kind of a follow-on to the very highly regarded and well-rated session from our 2025 CMA conference in San Antonio. And certainly we're going to have time for your questions at the end of today's session. So please enter those in the Q&A function below. It's my pleasure now to welcome our panelists today. Gina Carbone is Senior Customer Success Manager at Harmonya with 25 plus years of experience in CPG. Now, before joining Harmonya, she spent 5 years at Trax managing in-store audit-based projects with leading CPG clients. She also spent more than 15 years at Nielsen, supporting clients with roles in field sales, HQ sales, and insights, and she also has a wealth of Catman experience as well. Now, Gina's interests include cooking, and she has a yellow lab, Riley, who clearly won the dog lottery, living in a home with a good cook. So 3 cheers for Riley there. 3 cheers for this Riley as well. We're so pleased to welcome Riley Rogers, the Senior Manager and Category Sales Advisor at Coca-Cola. Now, Riley is a seasoned CPG veteran in Catman and Insights work, whose work also included a large stint at Tyson. So she's a graduate of the University of Arkansas. She's got a pretty big game upcoming here tomorrow night against Texas Tech. With that, I will hand it over to Riley and Gina to kick it off today. To our panel, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mike. So as Mike said, Riley and I are here to talk to you today about some work that we've partnered on regarding how Coke is building some consumer-centric shelf strategies. So as Mike said, my name is Gina Carbone. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager at Harmonya. Riley, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, and I'm Riley Rogers. I work for the Coca-Cola Company, doing category management on some of our larger DSD categories.
All right, and I'll just start by saying this case study that we're presenting today is really a testament to collaboration between Harmonya and Coca-Cola, where Coca-Cola really kind of came to the table with their category expertise, and Harmonya came to the table with our enriched product data, and we really collectively put together a use case for that Coca-Cola could leverage.
So the relationship that we have with Harmonya, I mean, we really consider them an extension of our own team. They understand that in the CPG space, each category has really specific, really unique needs, that they're not all of the same. And the ability to contextualize that beyond what's available in syndicated data is something that we've been able to use with Harmonya to enhance like category and product analysis, but also space planning, which is what we're going to be sharing today.
All right, so before we go into the case study, I want to take a moment to just lay out what Harmonya does and where our data comes from. So we start by capturing information from product pages where consumers are purchasing products online. We are scraping information from these pages, from the product title, the product description, the ingredient list, as well as consumer reviews. And then what we do is we leverage our large language AI model to go through all of this information and understand and extract key terms that are relevant to those products. You can think of those terms as characteristics. At Harmonya, we call them tags. And then because we're doing all of this at a UPC level, we are able to combine the enriched product data with all of these characteristics and tags that we've acquired from the Harmonia side. And we're able to match that with sales data that our clients provide to us so that we can not only see what characteristics are important to products, but when you ladder those up and aggregate them, how are those terms performing in the market on a trended sales basis? And when you think about what can be done with all of that data, we can work with it on a foundational basis, whether it's UPC matching to retailer IDs, whether it's around our attribution management solutions, so very foundational solutions, or when it comes to enhancing data, whether it's looking at enrichment, that enriched product data, or through our insights platform where we are able to connect the sales data to the enriched product data. So for today's case study, we're really going to be focusing on data enhancement, where we leveraged enriched product data as well as our insights platform. All right. So when we think about leveraging all of this, first thing to really think about is we're talking about the shelf and how to manage the shelf more effectively. But when a consumer is really going into the store, the last thing they're really thinking of is the shelf. They have all sorts of other things going on in their head, right? It's what's going to be for breakfast this week. I'm having a dinner party and my vegan friend is coming. How do I manage that? So there's all sorts of stuff going on in their head that really have nothing to do with how the shelf is set. And when we think about the product structure for products at shelf, traditionally, many of us who have been floating around CPG for a while think about products in a very hierarchical sense. Everything is going to fall in a category or a subcategory. It's going to drill down into a brand or a sub-brand. But because we have this enriched product data at Harmonia, what that enables us to do is really add much more color context to what a product represents from the consumer perspective. So now, in addition to understanding those categories and subcategories, we can go deep on what claims that product is making, what occasions that product might be consumed with, and really just getting an overall more colorful picture of the products that are at shelf from the consumer perspective. Riley, I'll kick it over to you to talk about why we chose sports drinks.
Yeah, so as Gina said, the example that we're looking at here is the sports drink category. And like I said, every category is different. Every category is a snowflake. Like the unique needs of sports drinks are going to be different for other categories in the store. So when you think about the consumer of this category, these are people who are usually looking for some kind of benefit, maybe some kind of functional benefit. They're looking for great flavor, they're looking for refreshment, but they may also be looking for a specific ingredient in the product to meet the need that they're looking for. So this is a category where people might pick up the package, read the nutrition facts, or read the ingredient list, looking for either a specific ingredient, maybe a lack of ingredient, something that they're going to use to fuel them for an activity. So in this case, for sports drinks, a couple of key needs that the category meets fall under two different ingredients. So we chose the ingredient that provides the sweetened flavor, so sweeteners, and the main ingredient bringing the electrolyte to the beverage. So we'll kind of click through how Harmonia allows us to not only understand this data, but then use it on the shelf. So I would say typically, but typically you wouldn't analyze something by ingredient because you just don't have that data available to you. And if you really needed to do it, you would probably Google and look through product listings and read the ingredients and then manually make a note. And it would be a very, very manual process. It would take forever. That's why it's not typically done, because there is no great process for it. And in addition to that, I think it's, we don't even ask ourselves these questions because we just don't have the capability to answer it. So the way that Harmonia attributes these tags about the product unlocks answers to questions that people have, but they don't ask because the capability is just not there today.
All right. So when we think about how we're going to get to identify some of these different tags that might be important, we can start with our Harmonia Insights platform. And this is a screenshot of what the platform looks like when you log in. If you're looking at the Harmonia platform, on the left-hand side, you see the tags. They're organized in the diamonds. The size of the diamond is relative to the size of the tag. And then on the right-hand side of that screen, we have the different sales metrics that are tied to the diamonds that you see on the left. And we can focus what we're looking at. So we can look at those specific ingredients that we care about for sweetener type and see the relative size and the trend that's associated with them. We also can see a lot more information about each one of those ingredients. So whether it is the number of products that might have that ingredient in it, the sales, the total sales, the trend that's occurring.
So in addition to the facts about a product, like ingredients, that is a fact that is literally printed on the label. There are other facts about the product that may be put into online content, either by the manufacturer or by the retailer. So there are true things about the product that are in Harmonia's tags, but then they also have the ability to look at information that specifically comes from reviews. Like, are people calling your product smooth or sweet, or calling out what they're using it for, like a workout or mowing the lawn? So within Harmonia, you can see what people are saying in a really quantifiable way, which I guess if you want to go through several websites and read reviews, like you can kind of understand what people are saying. But Harmonia takes those terms and then ties it back to the sales data. So you can see how the attributes of an item, not just what's being said, but how the different things people are saying perform within that category, within other categories. So we can understand, people are saying they use this item every time they work out. Is people, using beverages when they work out, is that a sales trend that is growing and actually providing dollars to the category? So you don't just understand what they're saying, you can actually quantify it, which is just something I've never seen before.
All right. So let's think about where to begin with taking all of this information and applying it to a planogram situation. And we all start at the same place when it comes to planograms, right? So it's the products on the shelf. And again, like for the most part, we're all working with the same structure of data, those predefined characteristics that we're all used to working with. But if you are able to layer in some of this tag and these different tags and the characteristics in this enriched product data to think about where do those products sit on shelf, you would really have a different perspective about maybe the way shoppers are approaching the category, because now you can see where these products sit based on those different tags. And you can even take the opportunity to begin testing to see, does it make sense to reset the planogram in that way so that we can now make something that is more, that is easier shopped by consumers based on what is important to them. So when we think about taking this and applying it to sports drinks, and I'll let Riley take it on here.
Yeah, so we'll kind of look through an example. So the previous slides that Gina showed that show their insights tool, like that is the space that I would go to answer questions, to look at trends, to understand what's driving growth, what's draining growth. But the information that feeds that, we're going to show how it can also like feed the shelf. So this is a blank shelf. pretend these are a bunch of sports drinks items, not highlighted, just the blank shelf with the understanding of the location of the items and nothing more. On the next slide, so here we're looking at what I was talking about a few minutes ago. So this is what a planogram looks like when we use the Harmonia data to look at a specific element of the product. In this case, an ingredient. So here we're looking at which items have which ingredient being used as a sweetener, which is an important element of this category. So this is not a level of detail that as category managers we typically get to, but it is a level of detail that shoppers look for. And the ability to bridge that gap is what Harmonia has done here. So you can see just the different groupings, and this is just how the shelf is today in this particular example. Without doing any rearranging based on ingredient, you can see from sugar, high fructose corn syrup, stevia, sucralose, etc. on the shelf. And then in the next slide, we can see the ingredient providing, the key electrolyte providing ingredient. So you can see most of these example items here, it's salt, but there are a lot of people who maybe are looking for something different. So you can see several of the items use coconut water as their electrolyte-based ingredient. So looking at the next slide, the level of detail that Harmonia's data can provide really takes category analysis from good to great. So traditionally, you still may highlight in your planogram, you're probably going to look at brand, package type, whatever list of like 10 to 15 product attributes that you use. That's maybe it comes from a syndicated data provider's hierarchy, like you're just using whatever Nielsen or IRI provide, or maybe you have a team or an individual at your company that manages like any custom slices that you want to use. It may not necessarily be the most thorough way to understand the category, but it's the most manageable way for your team to maintain. So with Harmonia, that limitation of what's manageable is lifted because there are hundreds of tags for every item. So we can essentially understand everything about these items and bring a new capability to retail to enhance like those existing category best practices to bring a new layer to them and a new level of detail. So not only can we use Harmonia to just answer questions that we weren't able to answer before, we can actually bring it to life on the shelf.
Great. Thanks, Riley. And what I think the way I'll kind of close it out almost is just to say, what is your version of sweetener type or electrolyte for your category, right? Every category has something. So what are some of those consumer-centric product attributes that might be plaguing you that are really difficult to get to for your category? Is it around protein content or gluten-free from snack foods? Is it around being grain-free in pet products or maybe something that's even breed specific? Is it around lactose-free dairy options? Like every category has something that is difficult to drill into. So what's the one that's bothering you that Harmonia can help with? And when we really think about the applications of what to do here, a lot of it falls under speed to insights. So can you refine the way your planogram is structured? Can you test different scenarios of your planogram based on those different scenarios and how those product attributes might change the way you want to shelf your category? Can you foster collaboration with your retailer because now you're bringing them a different level of information than they might be used to having? And even can you change the way you make some assortment decisions because now you have the detail of the different product attributes? So that concludes our portion of it. Definitely welcome any questions.
Gina, Riley, thank you so much for that. Powerful stuff. And again, um, bringing it to life on a couple of those slides, particularly with regards to this idea of, again, what shoppers are, how they're viewing the shelf, where their eyes are going, the type of attributes they're looking for. The corn syrup thing particularly was powerful in that regard. Again, kind of, and where it is relative to where it was on the shelf, where it could be, where some things are that people are seeking. So I thought that was really great to sort of bring to life. I had a couple questions that have come in. The first one that we got was the ability for Harmonia to scrape data for sources other than strictly websites to quantify what people like about a product. And the example given here was, can it aggregate website reviews? TikTok mentions. That's a big one, right?
So
Instagram posts, another big one too.
yeah, so right now we are focused on just websites where products are being sold. And the reason for that is because we are looking to scrape down to the UPC level. So while you may have you may have products mentioned on social media, we don't have that specific tie to a UPC. And that's what the current limitation is with TikTok or Instagram.
Thank you for that. A great question though too. I mean, and again, I think where the mind is going with that, and great, where I think our audience is going again is, where finding again those sort of diamonds in the rough, if you will, about what people really are looking for, right? So
Yeah.
again, great question. Again, great specifics on kind of the how and why of how the tool works. Another question just came in. How does the tool determine the weight of attributes amongst one another? And the example that came in here was, for example, like in the example you showed, were you able to determine if sweetener type is more important, or is electrotype type more important in the consumer decision process?
So one of the great things about Harmonia is that when we are scraping information for products and identifying relevant tags, we are not we are not limiting ourselves um, to determining what's most important. We're including all information for that product, and we're capturing all tags associated with that product. And where a measure of importance comes is when we tie it to sales data. So now all products that may have the sweetener type of sucralose associated with it could result in $1 amount. But then all UPCs that have an electrolyte type of coconut water may have a different dollar amount because again, we're looking at it based on the UPCs that are selling that have those attributes. So we're not looking at importance from a consumer decision process. We're capturing everything that is available about that product and then saying, what are the sales associated with it?
Thank you, Gina, for that. One other thing that came in that was really interesting, or wanted to bring up. There was a slide near the end. This really powerful graphic about the idea of what the tool can do. Again, the idea of refining planograms, testing scenarios, fostering collaboration, right, and sort of again better assortment decisions. All were really interesting. As a comment first, the refining planograms one is really interesting. Again, this idea of clustering high growth attributes effectively. What stood out to me is the ability to do this, the speed, right, to be able to do this, right, to sort of bring those insights to action more quickly, right? That's the ideal in sort of the retailer supplier relationship. But there was something else that was said there. It kind of it talked about again this idea of fostering collaboration um, between suppliers and retailers. And Gina and Riley, can you speak a little bit to that topic in terms of both certainly obviously the importance of that, of course the the vitality of that, but also how this tool, how the insights and in kind of the ways of work that maybe this can lead to can sort of improve that relationship, and again, sort of also increase that stickiness, right, that every CPG is sort of going for.
Yeah, I can start on that one. In terms of like retailer collaboration, the insight tool that Harmonia has that is really stage one into leading to what I showed you in the planogram. So their web portal and their tool, if you know how to Google something, you know how to use Harmonia's insight tool. It is so simple and it is extremely quick. So the number of questions that we can answer as a company, both internally as well as with our clients, has increased tremendously because of the amount of work done on their side by AI that normally would take a really large workforce of people manually doing it, to the point that, like I said previously, we just wouldn't be answering those types of questions. So the list of questions that you can now answer about your products, your category, and even other categories, maybe even categories like we work in the beverage space, but there are trends that may happen and start in beauty. Like there are flavors and scents and benefits of things that happen in completely different categories, and being able to understand how are those tags is the term Harmonia uses, but how are those trends creeping in to our category, and being able to have a heads up of how long has something been growing? What are those things that are maybe bubbling up from the bottom, don't have a huge amount of sales yet, but they're starting to gain a ton of traction. So the speed to insight is the true value that I feel like with Harmonia, the speed to insight and the like, you will not have time to answer all the questions that you can now answer, because the list is just too long now of questions that you actually can answer with Harmonia. You won't even have time to get to them all. So you can imagine the type of conversations that can unlock, and the ability to quickly move through bad ideas and get to good ideas,
Right.
both internally and with your retailers.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that to say, you know, think about how quickly you can answer a question from a retailer. And I know Riley and I have had these conversations, in our just our partnership working together, where, if a buyer comes to you and says, I've heard this ingredient is the new hot thing, and within a matter of minutes, you can answer that question. You don't have to say, let me get back to you. It almost turns into a little Mythbusters, right? Like you take something from a very, you know, hypothetical, I randomly heard about this thing. I saw this new product in a store, and you can put dimension and facts around it versus saying, you know what, let me see what information I have, or let me see what I can dig up. You can do it while you're sitting right there.
Great way to end it today. And, Riley, to kind of go back to something you said at the outset, the two things really jumped out. In your really insightful sort of answer to get this kick started here, right? The first being, when you have a tool that both wins internally, where people see the knowledge of it, right? They see the value of it. It kind of wows, and then you're obviously able to take those sort of insights and take them to market, take them to the client, and that's a win-win, right? That's how something gets adoption, and that's most of all, right? Ultimately, any technology decision we make, it's what it really comes down to is when we get it up and running, is it something that's helping us? Is it something where the value is seen really quickly? And it's very obvious, and that those are some great examples there. Second thing too is this idea of being able to work through bad ideas quickly, right? I mean, isn't that the nature of things, right? Not all ideas are equal, right? But we've, you know, you've got to get them sort of elevated, and you've got to try things, right? And that's kind of why we're here, right? It's this idea that we're all trying to get better, and to sort of get the magic bullet to reach shoppers, where they are shelf. And this was a really powerful example of that today. Great stuff. Riley Rogers from Coca-Cola, Gina Carbone from our friends at Harmonia. And we really appreciate the time today. We've got a busy webinar schedule upcoming here at the CMA, one next week, and basically all through the spring we're sort of filling up. So we really look forward to you kind of joining us for programming like this today that kind of, I think, elevates your decision making. And again, this idea of to end on something Riley said, this idea of the insights that maybe come from other categories, trends from other things, trends from beauty. How do they eventually end up in beverage or things like that? We don't know always, right? And we don't quite know the ingenuity or the way the things sort of move, right? But if we can see the footprints earlier, that's the power, I think, of what we talked about today. So Riley Rogers, Gina Carbone, thank you so much today. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Have a great remainder of your Wednesday and week, guys, and we'll be back next week for another CMA webinar. Everyone have a great day now. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.